So a classic children's fantasy about a girl who gets swept from Kansas to a magical land called Oz. Welcome, this is Check That Book. And today we're going to take a look at yet another, possibly disturbing, possibly fairy tale origins. You'll probably know the book written by Elfring Baum about Dorothy who gets swept away, and in order to return home she travels to Emerald City with her new acquaintances, companions, a scarecrow, a tin woodsman, and a cowardly lion. Each of those characters seeking also something that they lack. Like cowardly lion obviously is looking for courage, Everybody has something to ask for. And you know the fairy tale, right? Well, you know what this topic is all about. You know what this playlist is all about. It will be in the description, by the way. So let's try to find out what could have been the original idea behind this fairy tale, and what interesting and questionable references I found. Now, despite its cheerful surface, Oz has inspired a lot of darker readings and speculation, some more grounded and some more fringe. For example, the political allegory. Now, this is quite a popular one. It is widely accepted as a hidden layer even. Many scholars believe that the story reflects late 19th century US politics. Dorothy is the ordinary American. The yellow brick road represents the golden standard. The scarecrow are the farmers. The tin woodsman, industrial workers. The wizard, political leaders who appear powerful but are actually very hollow. Now, as much as I don't like discussing politics and I try to avoid this topic at all costs, and if you've been on my channel for quite some time then you know, but I have to admit I agree with this one. It's not necessarily horrifying or very disturbing or whatnot, it's just can prove to you that the story is built on some economic anxiety, or that's probably wrong to say. It is a children's book after all, but perhaps why so many people saw it this way, it was a very decent, again, reflection on economic struggles and deception and manipulation, and in the bigger picture, it becomes less whimsical in that regard. So I think many people saw it that way at the time for reasons. But let's look at where things get more uncomfortable. Before writing Oz, Baum worked as a journalist and wrote editorials that supported violence against Native Americans during conflicts in the American West. Some critics argue that the destruction of the wicked witches and portrayal of evil lands reflect colonial attitudes. Fancy that. Now, the idea of sweeping away wicked groups echoes harsh real-world ideologies. That's the category of questionable ideas, questionable choices, questionable actions. This doesn't, of course, necessarily mean that Oz is directly about these ideas, but it complicates the innocence of its creation if you think about it. But then on the other hand, of course, I will counterbalance it all by saying, you know what? If you allow yourself to think that broadly, then you will be able to see similar subplots, contexts, and undertones in pretty much every story. So let's move on and leave it aside. The genocide against Native Americans was bad, and we're not going to discuss this on my channel. It's not about that. I'm just it makes me angry, okay? It makes me angry and more so misanthropically inclined. Speaking of which, make sure to check out my own book, Misanthropically Inclined. Yes, I will never get tired of speaking about this one. I am somewhat proud that it has finally come to fruition, and you will be able to grab your own copy at Amazon today. The links for this book will be in the description below. It's not just a poetry book. It has some thoughts here and there, and I'm just hoping to kind of find my people. Does that make sense? Not to start a community or a revolution or something, God forbid. Just saying, with this little creation, I encourage you to express yourself all the ways you can, right? In all the ways you can. So if you're a fellow author, a fellow self-published author like myself, do it. It's not that difficult. I mean, it is, but at the same time, it really isn't. If you can dream it, you can do it, I suppose. So the link for me actually introducing the book and its concept will be also in the description, in case you're curious. Now, let's continue on with the Wizard of Oz. Now, from a psychological standpoint, Dorothy's journey can be read as an escape. Kansas is bleak, colorless, and emotionally flat, and Oz is, on the other hand, vibrant, exaggerated, and surreal, kind of like Wonderland. Some interpretations suggest that Oz reflects a child coping with isolation or hardship, turning reality into a dreamlike fantasy where problems are simplified and solvable. Now that is a very familiar concept. Like I said, Alice in Wonderland, in gaming, well, Frambo, maybe even Little Miss Fortune. Speaking of which, yes, there will be lots of references today. The links for my Disturbing Games playlist will also be in the description. I specifically suggest you check out the Frambo video if you like this kind of topic of escapism, and Little Misfortune video, and Rusty Lake and Silent Hill. There's lots to choose from actually by now. Now let's get back to the actual disturbing stuff. In original text we have some icky moments that, if you think about them, well, were not quite suitable for children at the time. Not today, actually, but then again, nowadays children they're immune to lots of things by now, I think. The Tin Woodsman, for example, gradually loses his body to an enchanted axe. Essentially, it's a slow dismemberment story. The Wicked Witch of the West enslaves and terrorizes others. That's always fun. Flying monkeys are bound by magical slavery. Again, this strays off the path and goes into the direction of political questions. And the wizard is a fraud, manipulating everyone. Whilst not necessarily a disturbing origin story, the wonderful Great Wizard of Oz it can be viewed as a metaphor for not just the political situation at the time, but also, exploring some darker theories. What if Oz is a metaphor for a drug-induced hallucination? Ever thought about that? Then again, drives home with Alice in Wonderland, like there's a parallel. The story is also a possible coded trauma or mental illness. So if you think, like I said earlier, if you broaden up your mind, you can imagine any kind of scenario as the original backdrop for the text that we've got in the end. Plot twist of this entire video: this time around there is no original or historical source that I can back up on. Like I cannot say for sure that this directly hints to that, or this is a reference to this. No. This is one of those where the people themselves, at the time specifically, could read between the lines and find some subjects extremely relatable. And mainly this is the political context, specifically taking into account Baum's own background. And whilst a hopeful child's story about self-discovery, when you look closer, this entire premise sits on top of some real historical tensions the political ones that I've said, and morally complicated views of its author, and as well surprisingly eerie narrative elements that don't really bother you as much when you read them because they're written very, how should I say it, mildly and not in your face. We're not talking about a graphic splatpunk novel here after all, but that mix is probably why this story is still, to date, both magical and slightly uncanny, more than a century later now. I mean, look at the cartoons and film adaptations of this story. They're bizarre. They look bizarre, and not just because of the director's choices. It's because the story itself is not that straightforward. I'd like to quickly mention that the most disturbing part of this entire video is actually perhaps not the story itself or its possible origins, but the most iconic, or should I say notorious, adaptation, The Wizard of Oz, that stars Judy Garland as Dorothy. Behind the scenes, it was far darker than its tone suggests. Grueling filming conditions and long hours for Judy, and early film effects caused injuries, including severe burns to the Wicked Witch actress. And also taking heavy studio control and pressure to account, we've got what we've got, and that film, with all of its scandalous production, is still the most known one to date, and is, in my not so humble opinion, the most freakish looking one. Not just because of the time when it was made, but also, right, you know, it's bizarre, it's uncanny, and I'm not a huge fan, albeit I do like uncanny, and sure, I look into the disturbing all the time, but this one it just doesn't make me comfortable, mainly because I cannot call it out on being actually disturbing. There's also the 1978 adaptation with Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. I don't like putting these two names in one sentence, but then there's that. It's considered important in both music and cinematography. Tin Man, Return to Oz, Oz the Great and Powerful, my personal favorite out of the bunch. There's all of these adaptations look darker, right? I'm surprised that our man Tim Burton is yet to make the adaptation. That would be a very suitable material to work with, I believe. So, Tim Burton, Mr. Burton, if you're watching this, heck, he is. I'd die of a heart attack if Tim Burton saw any of my videos. I'd be like, my life was wonderful. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. No, seriously, this would be a great material to work with further, because as a Tim Burton fan myself, an admirer is a better word, yeah, I could see this perfectly fitting in. But I digress. So what about this one? Like I said, it is easier to imagine extra stuff to the concept of the story than to actually find something that could, you know, prove me right or wrong. Does it belong in the category of disturbing? Not necessarily, no. Uncanny? Yes. Oh, fuck yes. So tell me your side of the story. Was this one of your favorite books growing up? It wasn't my favorite per se, but I did have it on my shelf when I was a kid. I thank you all so much for watching. If you like unorthodox content, please consider giving this video a boost in the form of an erect thumb, and make sure to subscribe for more. I shall see you all as soon as possible. Cheers. Have a good one, ladies and gents.